When a country is on the brink of annihilation, with only two isolated cities remaining, the decision of life or death looms large. In the face of despair, the last hope of the country rests on an extraordinary general. However, this general does not rely on conventional forces. Instead, he places his trust in a herd of livestock, using an unimaginable strategy to challenge a mighty enemy and create a miraculous victory. What happened in this battle that changed the fate of the nation?
In the 3rd century BCE, the land of China was in the midst of the Warring States period, a time of chaos where numerous states vied for supremacy. These kingdoms fought relentlessly for land and power. Qi, once a dominant power in the east, was now on the brink of collapse. After a series of defeats, Qi's territory was nearly entirely consumed by the invading forces of the Yan state and its allies. Only 2 isolated cities remained, Zhu and Jimo. These 2 cities stood like lone islands in a vast ocean of turmoil, on the verge of being overwhelmed. Jimo, the last hope of Qi, was the key to its survival. Whether it could hold out until reinforcements arrived would determine the fate of Qi. At this critical moment, standing atop the walls of Jimo, was a man named Tian Dan. Once a minor official in Qi, he had found himself unexpectedly tasked with defending the last stronghold of the kingdom. Gazing down at the densely packed Yan army encampment below, Tien Dan furrowed his brow, his eyes flashing with determination.
General, the Yan army surrounds us on all sides, and our supplies are running out. And the soldiers.
The deputy general's voice trembled, filled with anxiety and fear. Tian Dan did not turn around. He knew that the situation before him was a matter of life and death, but deep inside, he had a resolve that could not be shaken.
We cannot simply hold out. We must create a miracle,
he said in a low voice filled with strength.
We cannot win by brute force. We must outsmart them. We will strike them with a fatal blow.
The deputy general, stunned by Tian Dan's resolve, silently prayed for the success of his plan. Meanwhile, in the Yan army's camp, General Qi was indulging in wine and pleasure, surrounded by beauty and laughter. The wine in his cup shimmered as he laughed heartily, his arm draped around a beautiful woman. The camp was filled with the warm glow of candles, and the scent of the feast filled the air. His officers and soldiers chatted merrily, discussing how easy it would be to capture Jimo and plunder Qi's wealth and women. Their laughter echoed through the tent, and they believed victory was already certain, their worries long forgotten.
Jimo is nothing more than a small city. Once we take it, the wealth and beauties of Qi will all be ours.
Qi boasted, his voice filled with supreme confidence. He lightly tapped his wine cup, inviting his officers to drink, as if victory had already been decided. His hand rested lazily on the woman beside him, and he savored the moment, filled with the certainty of success. His officers echoed his words, the atmosphere in the camp light and carefree. They did not see Jimo's resistance as a threat at all. What they didn't realize was that far away in Jimo, Tian Dan was already scheming a plan that would change the course of the entire battle. While Qi relied on his overwhelming military might, he was blind to the latent power of Qi's last line of defense. Tian Dan knew that if they faced Yan head-on, Qi's few thousand soldiers would stand no chance against Yan's tens of thousands of elite troops. The situation was growing more desperate by the hour, but then, suddenly, a phrase from The Art of War flashed through his mind.
The 5 changes of fire defended by numbers. Fire attack.
But how could it break through the Yan army's strong defenses? Their camps were fortified, and a simple fire attack wouldn't do the trick. At that moment, Tien Dan's gaze casually swept over the cattle in the city, and a flash of inspiration struck him. He suddenly realized what needed to be done. A bold, brilliant plan began to take root in his mind. Over the next few days, Jimo seemed to be under a spell. The soldiers worked day and night, tying sharp blades to the horns of over 1,000 cattle and attaching reeds soaked in oil to their tails. The cattle were even dressed in colorful dragon-patterned robes. The people of Jimo, though they didn't fully understand the plan, saw the determination in Tian Dan's eyes and threw themselves into the work with unwavering commitment. Each cow became a secret weapon that would pierce the darkness of the night.
Can these cows really change the fate of Qi?
One soldier asked, his voice filled with doubt and hope. Tien Dan smiled and answered firmly.
These aren't just cows, they are the future of Qi.
Finally, the fateful night arrived. The moon was hidden behind dark clouds and the sky was suffused with an eerie darkness. Tian Dan stood atop the walls of Jimo, his eyes fixed on the Yan army's camp in the distance. He knew this would be the decisive moment. Outside the walls, most of the Yan soldiers were asleep, their even breathing audible through the night. Tian Dan's heart raced, but his voice remained calm as he issued his command.
Act now.
In an instant, torches flared to life, and a section of the wall was secretly breached. Soon after, the reeds tied to the cattle's tails were set aflame, sending towering flames into the sky. The startled cattle, their tails ablaze, charged like fiery dragons toward the Yan army's camp. The cattle's roars shattered the night. Yan's soldiers sprang out of their sleep only to be greeted by the sight of these fiery beasts, draped in colorful robes, charging at them like demons.
Monsters! Monsters are eating people!
Someone screamed, dropping to the ground in terror. Panic ensued as soldiers scattered in every direction. Tents were knocked over, weapons thrown into chaos, and the flames illuminated the horrified faces of the men. This wasn't a battle, it was an apocalypse. Amid the chaos, Tien Dan led 5,000 elite soldiers out of the city, their morale soaring as they shouted,
Kill for Qi.
The Qi forces surged forward like a raging torrent, unstoppable. Qi, startled, scrambled to put on his armor and attempted to flee.
General, run!
His personal attendant urged, pulling him away. But just a few hundred steps away, the Qi forces caught up to them. Qi was slain on the spot, his head rolling through the mud. Without a leader, Yan's army crumbled in an instant. Qi's forces pursued relentlessly, Yan soldiers fleeing in all directions. The cities once occupied by Yan, upon hearing of Jimo's victory, immediately opened their gates, welcoming the Qi army in waves. Within days, Qi reclaimed over 70 cities, and the once dying kingdom was miraculously revived by this bold fire oxen tactic. After the battle, Tian Dan stood atop the walls of Jimo, gazing over the land he had just reclaimed.
Sun Tzu says, the change of fire attacks lies in the mind.
He murmured.
Today we used our wits and the changing times to win, turning the tide in our favor.
As the golden light of the setting sun bathed the land, Tien Dan's shadow stretched long, as though this battle, this moment of strategic brilliance and courage, would forever remain etched in the river of history. This was not just a military victory. It was the victory of wisdom and bravery, the perfect application of military strategy in real life.
You're watching stories of strategy, learning Sun Tzu through legends. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more, please support us by subscribing. Every subscriber helps us keep these ancient tales alive. This is China Tales. See you in the next legend.